Welcome, 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 welcome. Caesar's greetings to all. Welcome to this live stream. I'm so excited to be with you this Wednesday morning. Live stream, speaking out, exposing corruption and incompetence. Now, again, let me say it is good to be here to be able to interact with you and to tell you some things that I'm sure you will find very, very interesting. Now, I know that this program is going to be reaching many, many persons, people who know me, people who do not know me. So I think it will be important as an introduction to basically let you know who I am. As indicated there, I am Paul Slow. I'm a retired Assistant Commissioner of Police in the Guyana Police Force. I retired in 2010 at the rank of Assistant Commissioner. After that, I was recently the most recent chairman of the Police Service Commission. And I think because of my role as chairman of the Police Service Commission, lots of the current issues, lots of my woes began there. So I think it's important to let the public know what it is all about. So when I talk about exposing incompetence and corruption, that is exactly what I'll do. I'll point to specific issues, specific incidents, and then I'll ask you to be the judge. What do you think is behind some of the issues that I am going to highlight? Now, I know that in the context of Guyana, many people will label you as being political. They're going to find all kinds of label for you. Well, I will say from the outset, I have never been involved in any political party. I've never been a member of any political party. Like every citizen, I have a constitutional right to support which political party I feel represents my interests. And over the years, I have done so. The next question I know people want to ask is why now? Why, after all these years, Mr. Paul Slow, retired Assistant Commissioner of Police, is speaking out now? And let me address that right off the cuff. I am doing this now. A matter of fact, I did indicate I had planned to start some time ago when I did an interview with Travis Chase a few weeks ago. I did indicate that while I was grateful to all the TV stations and all the people who are doing live streams for inviting me for interviews, I don't think that would solve the purpose, because I have so many things to speak about. Those infrequent invitations will not do it. So I thought the best thing to do is to host my own live stream. And I went about acquiring some stuff, doing some research, because I know that many of the people who will be exposed are going to look to see if you say anything malicious about them. They are going to look to see if they can stop you in your tracks. So I'm very careful to make sure that I did research and I have the facts that I am going to present and for you to be the judge. Now, this whole thing has to do with the fact that after 37 years of outstanding service to the Guyana Police Force, and by extension, Guyana, during the course of this year, some corrupt elements in the police force, senior officers I refer to, I'll tell you who they are as we go along. Some corrupt senior officers, at the behest, I suspect, of some politicians, decided that they had to get rid of Paul Slow as the chairman of the Police Service Commission because he did not acquiesce to some requests, direction, orders from the politicians. So out of the blues, Paul Slow, along with another member of the Police Service Commission, Mr. Clinton Conway, some members of the police force, serving members and former members of the police force, were dragged before the court on a trump-up charge of conspiracy to commit fraud. Now, I'm not going to go into the details because that matter is still before the court. It is sub judice, as they said, but I thought I'd let you know what brought me to this point. And those charges were influential in me deciding to speak out and expose the corruption and incompetence. Now, and I'm doing this because I am sure you are aware. If you're not, let me tell you. What happens in the context of Guyana and politics is that issues are raised. People are charged falsely in many cases. People are accused falsely in many cases. And then it's the headline, big headline in the dailies and on social media. And after a few days, perhaps a few weeks, if you're lucky, after a few months, they disappear. What I call the limited shelf life. These matters come up and then they disappear. And people capitalize on the fact that these things have limited shelf life. So they bear their chafe, so as we say, and then the matters are removed from the public domain. I don't want these matters to be removed from the public domain. So I decided that I am going to bring them to the fore at every and any opportunity I get to do so. I will let the public know, the Guyana public, the wider public know exactly what transpired and where we are, how I got to this, point. So understand that is the background to this whole issue, where the charges were brought for the purpose of getting rid of the Police Service Commission. I'll give you the facts. I'll give you the dates. I'll give you the details. And you are reasonable people. You're going to make your decision as to whether what I say is true, what I say is false. And I've been telling the media persons that when I make statements, don't necessarily take them as gospel. I give you the information, I give you the facts, I give you dates, I give you time, I give you persons involved. You do your investigation to find out what Paul Slow is saying is true. You do the follow-up, you do the investigations, and you will know and come to your own conclusion as to what it is, whether it is true or not. You know, as a former senior law enforcement officer, they say that you deal with evidence. You can have what we call direct evidence, and you can have what is circumstantial evidence. In many of these cases, you're going to have direct evidence, and then in many of them, you're going to have strong circumstantial evidence. And my training has taught me that in many cases, circumstantial evidence can be as strong or even stronger than direct evidence. So direct evidence, you know, someone saw something, they go to the court and they say, well, look, I saw this. And then some clever lawyer start to cross-examine them, or the memory might fade, and the thing goes. But when you have strong circumstantial evidence, when circumstances point to one and one direction only, that can be very, very compelling. That can be very, very strong. So I'm going to present you with direct evidence. I'm going to present you with circumstantial evidence, and you be the judge as to whether what I'm saying has merit or not. So that is by way of my introduction to you, who I am, what has brought me to this point. Now, let me go into some details. As I indicated, I was the chairman of the Police Service Commission, along with Clinton Connery, Vesta Adams, Claire Jarvis, Michael Summersall, all retired assistant commissioners of police. In the case of Michael Summersall, he became a member of the Police Service Commission by virtue of the fact that he was also chairman of the Public Service Commission. Now, the Constitution provides that the chairman of the Public Service Commission is ex officio, is an ex officio member of the Police Service Commission. So by virtue of that, Mr. Summersall became a member of the Police Service Commission. Now, the Police Service Commission is tasked with the primary responsibilities of promoting ranks in the Guyana Police Force from inspector to assistant commissioner. The Service Commission is also tasked with the responsibility of disciplining those forces, and discipline here, including removal from office. So that's the two primary roles. There are some other roles, but those are the two primary roles of the Police Service Commission: to promote persons from the rank of inspector to assistant commissioner, and to discipline those same persons. Now, when the commission that I chaired took office on the 9th of August 2018, we got there and we discovered that there were lots of irregularities, lots of allegations of irregularities, and I must say, credible allegations. I have seen in reports, or a report in particular, on investigations, or an investigation that was conducted into the Police Service Commission, and the findings were damning. The findings were damning. So we got there when the previous allegations were made that the previous commission, and even though they say the commission, we know that that commission had some very decent and honorable persons in the form of retired Deputy Commissioner Alvin Smith, in the form of retired Deputy Commissioner Arel Martin, in the form of retired Assistant Commissioner, the late Keith John. Very good and reputable persons. So when the allegations were made and investigated that monies were being paid to a particular member of the Police Service Commission, it was indeed alarming. And this was what I'm telling you is no secret. Police branks will tell you, names were called. People know who are the people who paid monies to be promoted. So people were promoted. In some cases, there are a few persons promoted from corporal straight to inspector without any special qualification, just through corruption. The process was compromised. The process was corrupt. And many of the police ranks will tell you they had little confidence that they will be recognized or be promoted because of the hard work. So it wasn't anything about merit. It was about approaching a particular man. They claim he was somewhere in the East Bank. You negotiated with him, you paid the money to him, and then the monies or the money will get to the right person, and you will be promoted. So that is the atmosphere in which the commission that I chaired got there. Allegations too that many times the commission will meet, the police service commission over the years would do promotions at the end of the year, Old Year's Day, as we call it. But before then, promotions were made more frequently. I know promotions were made in February, 4th anniversary. Promotions were made in July, February, not the 4th anniversary, sorry, Republic anniversary in February. In July, the 4th anniversary, and then at the end of the year, promotions are made. But there's nothing saying that promotions have to be made at those specific times. But it was tradition. It was traditional that they wait on those special occasions to make promotions. So promotions were made at that thing. Now, allegations too that the previous commission you add, and that is the one, when I say previous, the one that we took over from, that a particular member kept big sport barbecues. He organized barbecues and police officers were given tickets to sell. Police officers had to visit a particular place across the river on Saturdays to socialize, to spend their money. That is the only way you will be able to get your promotion. So it was an atmosphere in which many policemen and women, of course, were dissatisfied with the process. So when we got into office, we had a task, very important task, to try to restore some confidence in the whole system of promotion. And we went about doing that by bringing the attention to the ranks, what the criteria for promotion would be. And those things are set out in the police standing order. It talks about passing the appropriate qualifying examination. It talks about having good conduct. It speaks to that having pending disciplinary or other matters. And then you're considered for promotion. And the process is the police administration will make recommendation to the commission. And then the commission will look at the recommendations and finally decide, because as I've indicated before, the Police Service Commission is the constitutional body to make promotion. So once recommendations are made to the Police Service Commission, those recommendations are considered very carefully to make sure that the rank who is recommending satisfies the criteria for promotion. As I've said, disciplinary matters, passing promotion examination, and all of that. Now, what we found is that in many instances, persons who did not meet the qualification or the criteria for promotion were recommended. They're all part of this corrupt process, all part of incompetence. Persons are recommended in some cases, and let me explain. In order for someone to be promoted, and this is a standing order of the police force, so that in order for someone to be recommended for promotion from sergeant to inspector, they must pass what is referred to as the appropriate qualifying examination. Examination is set by the police, Felix Austin Police College, marked, and the records are there. In order for someone to be promoted from inspector to the next rank, assistant superintendent, same thing. You have to pass what we call a gazetted examination, the appropriate qualifying examination to get to that rank. That whole process too was corrupted. The examination process became very, very corrupted. And outside of that, as I indicated, persons were recommended, the administration would recommend people for promotion, knowing full well that they did not meet the criteria. So at the commission, we decided that what we're going to do, we're going to examine these recommendations very, very carefully. Very carefully, in fairness to those persons who are recommended, and in fairness to those persons who are not recommended, because we had the Herculean task of examining to see why a particular person was not recommended. So, you know, in these hierarchical organizations such as the police force, you have rank structures. And if you are going to recommend someone for promotion to supersede persons who are senior to him or her, one would expect that you will advance reasons why the person is superseded, because again, you know, or you may know, if you don't, I'm telling you, that seniority is very important in these organizations. So if you're going to recommend someone to jump, as we would say, another person, one would expect that you will have proper reason. And therein lies a big issue, in that persons were recommended to supersede persons without any proper reason. All they might say is that, look, they don't think that this person should be promoted at this time. What are the reasons? No proper reasons advanced. So we have to go through that thing very diligently to make sure that those who are recommended met the required standard, and those who were recommended to be superseded were not unfairly treated. So it was not an easy task. Again, because of the atmosphere we got into, where people were alleged to be paying money, where people were just catapulted from, in many cases, from corporal to inspector, bypassing, superseding a whole set of sergeants, superseding a whole set of corporals who might have been senior to them. So that is the atmosphere that we took over and we tried to remedy. And let me say this is not something that was done secretly. I had several interactions. I, as chairman, was mandated by the other members of the commission to bring these things to the attention of the administration of the Guyana Police Force. And I did frequently. At every opportunity I got, I would tell them about the requirement. I will implore them to encourage people to write the appropriate qualifying examination. I would ask the administration to make sure that when you recommend people for promotion, is that the people meet the criteria set not by the commission, set by the police standing order. You must abide by the police standing order. Well, as you would expect, that approach met with resistance from some. It was applauded by many because people felt then that they were going to do their work. They were going to be honest, forthright police officers serving the public in the manner it was intended for them to serve, and they will be rewarded with promotion because of their work and not have to pay money to get promoted. So while some, and I guess the incompetent and the corrupt ones, were a little worried Many people, and people express this openly, publicly express they were so happy now that their work would be recognized. So it engendered a lot of confidence in the Police Service Commission, how we went about doing that work. Now, the other issue, as I alluded to earlier about the commission, that you have to deal with discipline. Well, that is a big problem in the police force, discipline. And you'll have to dedicate an entire program to deal with discipline, because what happens is that when a complaint is made against someone in the force from the rank of inspector to assistant commissioner, as I said earlier, the Police Service Commission is the constitutional body to deal with discipline. Now, the problem is the Police Service Commission does not have the capability, doesn't have the resources to investigate those breaches. So when we took over, we discovered all kinds of craziness. So, for example, when a report is made against an inspector or an officer, we discover that ranks junior to those persons, and the Police Act, the Discipline Act 1601, Section 5.3 of 1601 is specific as to who can investigate disciplinary matters. And it makes it clear that for disciplinary matter to be investigated, the person has to be first of the rank of sergeant. And then they say if the person who's alleged to have committed the offense is of or above the rank of sergeant, then the investigator has to be above the rank of that person. So if a sergeant is alleged to have committed a breach, then an inspector up has to investigate. If an inspector is alleged to have committed the breach, then an assistant superintendent up. That is the law, right? But what we discovered is that breaches were alleged to be committed. And in one case, there's a senior officer who complained openly in a meeting that he was summoned to the Office of Professional Responsibility. And I'll tell you something about that in another program. To investigate, this is a constable summoning a senior superintendent to tell him that he's under investigation based on some complaint that was made against him. So we realized that all of these things were not being done in the manner prescribed by law. So we started to clamp down on it. We made it clear that the law, you can't break the law to enforce the law. I remember telling them that you cannot break the law. The law is there. In the case of police, 1701, I may have said 1601 before. Police Discipline Act is 1701. And the law is there. You have to follow the law. If you feel that the law is inadequate, then you have to lobby. You have to canvass to have it changed. But you can't break the law to say that you're enforcing the law. So that is one of the issues we had. Where, and let me say, even before the commission that I chair, and long before the previous commission, the older police will tell you that that has been a bugbear over the years, in that an allegation is made against a rank from inspector to assistant commissioner. No investigation is done. The matter is there in his file, in a file somewhere, and every time recommendations are to be made for promotion, either at post anniversary, either at Republic time or at the end of the year, the administration will then write to say that this person is not being recommended because they have a pending disciplinary matter. I am aware, and you ask any one of the retired or even some serving policemen who have been there for some time, matters are there pending for years, 5, 6, 7 years. And every time the person is senior, the person is working, person expects to be promoted, can be promoted because they right to say that the person has a pending disciplinary matter. And we felt it was very, very unfair. It was very, very unfair. When we took over in 2018, they had many matters just there lying around, and nothing is being done. And all year, this person cannot be promoted because they have a pending disciplinary matter. Right? At one stage, I know an attempt was made by the commission to employ former, he was retired Chief Magistrate, Mr. Cecil Sullivan, to inquire into those matters. But then if you look at the Constitution, the Constitution does not allow that, because the Constitution says that in dealing with disciplinary matters, it has to be a member of the commission, or the commission can delegate the authority to a member or one or more members of the Guyana Police Force. So the question was asked that Mr. Sullivan was not a member of the Police Service Commission. Mr. Sullivan was not a member of the police force. So he could not have legally or lawfully inquired into this matter. So that process came to an end around 2015. Now, way back in 2008, 2009, when I was in the force, I did a paper which was sent to Mr. Green, was the commissioner then, on recommending how disciplinary matters should be dealt with. And this is in keeping with the Constitution. So we said that what should happen is that once an allegation is made against a rank inspector to assistant commissioner, we should send it on, as the force should send it on to the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission can then delegate the authority to someone in the force of the appropriate rank to investigate the alleged breach. Following the investigation, the Police Service Commission can also delegate the authority to select officers from the force of the appropriate rank again to inquire into the allegation or whatever disciplinary charge is brought. And so that process came on stream around 2009 because it was accepted. The paper that I did was sent and it was accepted by the Police Service Commission, and that process started. Now, what are the big problems they have? The investigation is done. Many cases very sloppily, because here it is, the commission is delegating the authority to a member of the force to investigate another member of the force. And in many times, they had no spirit, they had no intention of doing a proper investigation. And it's reflected in some of the reports. It is reflected in some of the reports that will go to the commission. And you know that a proper investigation was done as part of a corrupt process. And then when you get to the stage where a tribunal was empaneled to inquire into the matter, in many cases, the same thing. Same thing, no proper inquiry was done. So therefore, no one was held accountable for their action. And that is a big problem, accountability. And I dare anyone to challenge that. In the force now, people are not held accountable for breaches, for unprofessional action. They're not held accountable, so people operate with impunity. They do whatever they want to do. And I'm going to highlight some of those issues in later programs. They just do the thing, so to speak, and no one is held accountable. So much so that many times a report is made, and you might hear from time to time they talk about OPR, Office of Professional Responsibility. We're going to do an investigation. The Office of Responsibility, which is a section in the Guyana Police Force, staffed by members of the police force, they do an investigation. Again, sometimes the investigation is not done properly. And in many instances, when the investigation is completed, they send the file to the Director of Public Prosecutions, because to determine whether the person should be held liable criminally or departmentally. In most of those matters, again, depending on the nature, the DPP will advise disciplinary action. So they send back the file to the OPR and said disciplinary action. File goes to the commissioner, admin, disciplinary action. And let me say this to you. Listen to this carefully. In many, many, many of the cases, I have seen the files. Nothing happens thereafter. The investigation is done. The file is sent for legal advice. Legal advice, the DPP or one of the officers there will say, institute disciplinary charge. It will tell you neglected duty, whatever it is. And that is the end of the matter. And if perchance the disciplinary charge is instituted, then no inquiry is done to bring that person to make that person answer to the breach. So it's a whole breakdown in the process. The whole process, disciplinary process, I've said I'll dedicate an entire program to that. Nothing happens. And that is why you see people running around the place continuing with their unprofessional behavior, because they are not held accountable for their misdeeds. They are not. So the whole thing about OPR, just a big front, a big facade to give people the impression that something is being done and nothing happens. Nothing happens. And as I indicated earlier, you have the place staff with people who, and this is not now, but from ever long, people are sent there who really and truly are not that competent to investigate the type of matters. They are not, but they're just put there as another department in the force, and then nothing proper happens, and everything just peter out. Nothing comes out of those allegations. Nothing. And I said before, I dare anyone to challenge that statement. But very few of those matters, very, very few, gets to the point where some trial is held. And as I've said, even when the trial is held, nothing comes out of it. When you look at the report, you look at the whole process, you see it's just people trying to help a colleague. People trying to help a colleague, and that's it. They close ranks, nothing happens. And people want to point fingers and say, well, you're saying these things now. What happened when you were in the force? And I would say to you, do your research and find out. Do your research and find out that Paul Slow, yours truly, had a reputation as a junior officer, as a senior officer, as a commander, that he did not mix matters when it comes to discipline. You have to be disciplined, or you are going to be held accountable for your action. The records are there. Talking about corruption, same thing. People going to say, well, what did you do? I wrote some articles in social media, and people ask the same question. Well, why only now? What did you do when you were there? Again, I say to you, find out. Ask people who were there and knew me, right? Knew how I operated. Ask the ranks who worked with me. They knew that anytime allegations were made against them, a particular process would have been initiated. And let me say this clearly. Allegations are allegations. Not because an allegation is made against a police officer or a police rank, he is guilty. It is due process. There is due process. The matter should be properly investigated, because I'm aware in many cases, if you have a police officer who is very, very firm, especially, let me say, like traffic, he ain't making sport, he locks up people and that type of thing, then they will come to make all kind of allegations just to try to get him out of traffic because he's an armed bug. I know that. I have had that experience personally, that once you are there and you're enforcing the law, people are uncomfortable. They want to get rid of you. And therefore, that is why you have to have due process when allegations are made. And I know of several cases. I'm not going to highlight them now, where I, as commander, young commander in D Division, policeman got jailed for corruption. Allegation made that they're taking money. This was one at Vredenhoek. He was caught, investigated, charged criminally, and pleaded not guilty, went through the process of trial, due process, found guilty and sentenced. There was another matter at Den Amstel, policeman from Den Amstel, taking bribe at Lenora, caught, charged criminally. A Division, same thing, several persons. People remember the prosecutor who was caught with a set of money. So I did what I was expected, what I was required to do, what the oath of office that I took said I should do. So when policemen are caught being corrupt, the process, as I've said before, due process. A man is innocent until proven guilty. You have to go through the process. And once the process is gone through. But the problem is now many times people just sweep these things under the carpet. The process is not gone through. So people know that they can go there, and the corrupt part is not the issue. The bribe taking is not the issue. The issue is that don't get caught, because if you're caught, you're likely to be punished. And in many cases, I've said before, even when you're caught, nothing happens, because that is how corrupt the entire system has become. And you have a corrupt system because you have many of the seniors are corrupt and dishonest and vindictive and spiteful and unprofessional and self-serving, many of the senior ones. So they can't speak to the junior people because, in an organization like the police force in particular, the junior ranks know what's going on. They know who are the corrupt officers. They know who are the unprofessional officers, because in many cases, they are part of the process. The junior ranks are asked to collect on behalf of. So they can't speak to these people. They can't discipline the junior ranks because, as we say in Guyanese parlance, the junior ranks know the story. The junior ranks know the story. So they don't want the junior ranks to skin them up, so they have to live good with the junior ranks. And that is part of the problem. That is part of the problem. You have senior people. And let me say this, as I've said repeatedly, there are many senior police, well, not only senior, many police officers who are honest, hardworking, and loyal to the system, not to the government, loyal to the country, loyal to the constitution, loyal to the citizen that they swore to serve. And only recently, you had two cases. You had the case of the man who was offered, the policeman in the East Bank, somewhere he was offered $700,000 to, according to the newspaper, the sentencing warrant. Well, I did say I don't know what a sentencing warrant is. So apparently, according to the police release, there was a sentencing warrant for this man. When he was arrested, his family offered the police $700,000. The police did not accept. The people were charged and before the court. Then you had the young policewoman in Bobby's, I think it is, who found a laptop bag with a laptop and $1 million Guyana. And she, I understand, according to the article, she looked for the owner. She managed to find the owner and hand over the money. So you have, and those are only two instances. But I know that there are many members of the force like that. They're honest and dedicated, and they are the ones who are to be encouraged. But it's not easy when you have people who are senior to you and even your peers are there, and the pressure can be tremendous. I know, I was there. The pressure can be tremendous because I am sure with the man with the rank who refuses $700,000, that other policemen, why you stupid? You get $700,000 and you refuse to take $700,000. The same comments or similar comments would be made about the policewoman who found that money and found the owner and returned it. And compliments to those persons, they must be complimented. And society must speak and encourage them to, and others to do the same thing. As I've said, I'm sure there are many more policemen like that. Not only junior ranks, there are officers too who are very competent. They are very honest and hardworking. The problem is that when you have those senior ones, the likes of Brutus, Senior Superintendent Calvin Brutus, who is so incompetent, so unprofessional, and according to the Chief Justice, self-serving, in those key positions, you're going to get problem. And I will speak about him in another program. Perhaps the next program, I'll give you some details. Because I know, as I've said before, people are sitting back there to say, well, you defame them, and they're going to run to the lawyers to get advice. But I said, bring it on. Bring it on. I have the facts. Bring it on. And I'll reveal the facts as we go along. You have people like Karim Bash, who's in charge of Souk. We had a big laugh a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Well, it wasn't something to laugh about, but people called me because if you remember when I did the last interview on HPG TV, Alagala with Travis Chase, the question about SOKU, the unit that is headed by Senior Superintendent Fazil Karimbash, came up. And I said then, and I say again now for emphasis, that Karimbash is incompetent. He's not qualified to head such a unit. And no less a person than the Attorney General called him out because they wanted to have a certain outcome. in respect of the former finance minister, Mr. Jordan. The vice president called out the unit, said that he was disappointed that they did not take action against Winston Jordan. And I said then that the fact that the attorney general and the vice president can call out SOKU in respect of not taking action against former finance minister Winston Jordan, I said then that if I were a betting man, I would wager big that before long, SOKU is going to find something to give to Mr. Winston Jordan. That is what I said then. And about 2 weeks after, or less than 2 weeks after, I think it was, Mr. Jordan is arrested. And people then who remembered what I said called me and said, well, like you said, Obia, man, I say, I know Obia, man, but I see how the thing playing. You have an incompetent man in charge, and the fact that he's called out by these people, he will feel obliged to do what they want to do. And in this case, when you talk about this case, it's not about whether you have evidence to convict. Not about that. That is not important to these people. But it's just to make sure that a certain outcome, person is arrested, person is handcuffed, and the person is put in front of certain media news outlets, and is the embarrassment. And I know from experience, because they tried that with me. You recall on the 15th of October, I went to court, Georgetown Magistrate Court 3, in answer to a summon. I got a summon from an assistant superintendent from SOKU, Krishnath Ramana, to attend court on the 3rd to answer the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud. And when I turned up at the magistrate court, the officers there, along with other ranks, to arrest me for the same charge. And I said then, and I emphasize again, that I don't think he did that on his own. He works with Karim Bash. Karim Bash would have sent him to arrest Paul Slow. And then when I said, well, look, you cannot arrest me for charge that is already before the court. Because I'm aware the charge was filed since the 19th of May. And at least one attempt was made for an arrest warrant to be issued for me. I was overseas working, and I had indicated from the outset that when my tour of duty was finished, I'm going to return to Guyana to clear my name. Very early, one of my lawyers, Mr. Selwyn Peters, made that very clear that I was going to return. But no, they applied for a warrant, and quite rightly, the magistrate did not issue the warrant because I was never arrested. I was never put on bail. I was never even questioned in respect to the matter. And that's a strange development. Never questioned. No allegation was ever put to me, but he's there to arrest me. As I've said, instruction, Karim Bash. And I will tell you about Karim Bash, because the same charge that I'm referring to was instituted by SOKU. Karim Bash, a man who the police service commission that I chaired had cast to initiate disciplinary action against. Allegations were made against him. Due process was followed. Investigation was done. A recommendation was made. A tribunal was set up to inquire into the matter. And the man moved to the High Court to stop the tribunal from inquiring into the matter. The matter was ventilated in court, and the judge threw out his application. The judge threw it out. He has appealed the matter. The appeal is still to be heard. But this is a man. Can you imagine that? We're talking about exposing corruption and incompetence. A man who a senior superintendent, in the case of Fazil Karim Bash, who the police service commission had cast to initiate disciplinary investigation against. This is a man who is investigating the 2 members of the police service commission. This is the man. So there's no professionalism, because one would have thought that even if, let's say that even if you're saying that the people did commit an act, the fact that you have disciplinary matters in front of the commission, the professional people in a competent system, in a system that is devoid of corruption, people would have said, well, you got to recuse yourself. You can't be investigating the people who have brought an investigation against you. But we don't know. They don't know that. They don't care about that, because they're there and they bully and they run roughshod over people. But I was not gonna have that. I told them plainly. And then you had some jokers. You can't, well, perhaps it's to call them jokers, you're doing a disservice to jokers, because there are some very competent jokers. And here I'm referring to so many people who took to the media to write, to say that you should comply and complain. So in other words, even though your rights are being violated, even though the police, in the case of Ramana and the others, had no lawful authority to arrest you, but because they're police and they come to say that you're under arrest, you should subject yourself to the arrest, and then voila. Nonsense. I will address powers of arrest in subsequent program. You cannot arrest someone, as they try to do in my case, on a matter that is already before the court. The matter is filed, the matter is before the court. You ask for a warrant, the court refused to give a warrant. You issue a summons, you file a summons, and the person is there to attend court in respect to the summons, and then you want to arrest them. And even more laughable, this is an assistant superintendent telling you that, well, he's arresting you to read a caution after charge. What nonsense? What nonsense is that? Cautions after charge are not read when the person is already charged and before the court. Caution after charge, and again, I will have to educate the younger policemen, because I see the younger policemen see these things and they believe it is right, and there's no one there to tell them what is the correct thing. So they see, here you have a case where an assistant superintendent is doing that. So one would imagine that the junior ranks, the constable, the corporals, and the sergeants, and those people believe it's the correct thing. So they go away with the idea that you can arrest a man after he's charged and the matter is before the court to caution after charge. So I will have to address those type of issues, because one of the things I should have said earlier, that this program exposing corruption and incompetence will get a stage where I am going to endeavor to enlighten and to educate the police rank, especially the junior one, who have been reaching out to me for guidance and advice in certain issues. So I'll use this platform to try to educate them later down as we go along. So you have that. Karim Bash is investigating the people who have instituted charge against him. As I said, he has appealed, and the matter is before the court. Then you have another one who is incompetent. You have Assistant Commissioner Ikin. He is there. A lot of these things that are going on now in the force is done because and by him. And he got his punks, as we would say in Guyanese parlance, because in the prior to the election in last year election, he boasted, he walked around police headquarters and boasted that the vice president, who was at the time the opposition leader, promised him that once the PPP wins the election, they will install him as the commissioner of police. So and people know how he has been undermining the current man in the chair, Nigel Appy. I got to the point where perhaps I should say I sympathize and I'm sorry for Nigel Appy, because he is just there as a shell. When on August the 2nd, the president was sworn in, immediately thereafter he started to get instructions from the vice president, from the Minister of Home Affairs, from the president, and the poor guy just feel compelled to go along. And however, I would have thought by now he would have grown some spine and some testicles to make sure that you can not stand up in a disrespectful way, but to be able to advise that this is not the way things are done. For example, the transfers and postings, all the senior transfers and postings that have taken place are done by the Minister of Home Affairs. All. So Ikin's posting to the position he is now. That's instruction from the Vice President. Brutus, Karim Bash, Blanum, Caesar, all of those guys, the posting of all of those guys were at the behest of the politicians. So that is why we have all the problems. And I suspect that unless something is done, it's going to get worse. Again, as I've said, walks around, and the ranks will tell you, as they have told me, that Ikin is the man who running the show. Happy is just there as a figurehead. Ikin is the man who running the show because he was promised the commissioner work. And people have said to me, only a few days ago, somebody said the time Ikin running around the place and doing all these things should really try to find his correct board certificate. Because people have said that even though he says that he's 53, he has taken a year off of his real age. That has happened before in the force. There are several cases, perhaps the one that I am very, very familiar with when I was in Borbis as the commander. I did an inspection. Commanders notified the inspection at Springlands. And the sergeant there, when I examined the nominal roll, the nominal roll at the police station is the document which is posted with all the names of the ranks at the station, their date of birth, and the like. And when I examined the nominal roll, I recognized that the sergeant who prepared the nominal roll was at an age where he should have been retiring soon. And if you don't know, I'm telling you now that when you're in the public service, the police in particular, you get a letter from the administration of the force, which comes through the public, comes through the ministry, 1 year before you are due to retire, to tell you that you're going to retire on a particular date, how much days, how many days leave you have due, and that type of thing. So this is a case where this man wrote the nominal roll. And when I looked at the date as bought, I thought he should have received his letter by then. Of course, the letter would have come to the commander. I did not see any letter. So I turned to him, I said, well, did you receive your letter for retirement? He said, no. I said, but how come you're born this year? You should be coming off next year. He said, no, that is wrong. So I said, what is wrong? He said, the board date that he wrote on the nominal roll is wrong. So it was a big laugh. I said, well, you wrote this thing. How come this thing is wrong? And it turned out because I investigated that matter. I always remember I went to one of my co-accused, so to speak, who was in charge of administration at the time, who was the staff officer, George Fraser. I said, look at this man thing to me and let me know which is his true board date. And the board date that is on the nominal roll started out. And then at some stage along the way, it changed. So I'm saying that this allegation against the kid is not unique. People have been alleged to do that before. But the people who know him say he's 54. He's the same age. I know Mr. RP is due to be 54 in a few years' time, so in a few days' time. So he has less than a year. So the kid is there yapping at his heels, waiting for it to demit. But I want to say this. You have a man who is unqualified for even the position that he's in. You want to make him commissioner. All right, you want to make him commissioner. The man, as if you make him commissioner now, he has less than a year, less than 2 years factoring leave and all that. So you're talking about development of the force. You're talking about development, reform of the force, and you're going to try to install an incompetent, unqualified man with less than 2 years service in the seat of the commissioner. I made the point again in the last interview that the Barbados, Royal Barbados Police Force recently appointed the new commissioner. Well, not the force appointed, but the commissioner was appointed to head the force. And the man's qualification is very, very impressive. The man's qualification is impressive. And when you look at the man who wants to be commissioner and who's acting as his commissioner, and who the politicians are referring to as a deputy commissioner when he's not. So where are we going in terms of reform and development? Where are we going? And I know, and I suspect that despite what is being said, I still feel that I have an obligation to bring this thing to the public's attention. And despite what is being said, they're going to say, oh, is the parcel. They don't look at the message, they look at the messenger. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to appoint the man. And then what's likely to happen then, when he reaches the age of 55, they're going to want to extend his service. But let me remind all that extending the service of commissioners has not had a very good ending. In my memory, the first person to have been extended would have been Mr. Balaram Ragabir, decent man, Mr. Balaram Ragabir. The second person, well, then Mr. Larry Lewis. which is a program in itself, because Mr. Larry Lewis, when he was commissioner, used to tell you don't have transport for any office, so therefore it means that he can move you whenever he wanted to move you. But when his time came to retire the mandatory age of 55, he found the transport which says that he cannot be removed, and he was extended by the government, the PPP administration, until he's 60. And they wanted to extend him beyond 60, but a member of parliament, Debbie Bacher, the address is there. She went to parliament. She decided she was going to challenge it in court, because apparently there's some law which says that you can't be extended past the age of 60. So they extended Mr. Lewis. Didn't end so well. He had to run out. He had to move out. Then they extended Mr. McDonald, Mr. Floyd McDonald. And we know what happened during the tenure of Mr. McDonald, death squad and the like, all the killings and all of that. And then they extended my squaddy, Mr. Henry Green. And you know how that went, with charge of rape and then all kind of allegations against him. And then after that, they extended Mr. Leroy Bramell. That too did not go too well. So the force, and then let me say this, that the culture of the force is that once a person reaches the age of retirement at 55, even when the government or somebody decided they're going to extend you, that does not sit well with the force, with members of the force. The type of respect you would have earned before suddenly diminishes, and that is never a good thing in terms of the extension and to stay on the stream and to deny other people. So this thing calls for proper planning, succession planning, which has been lacking in the police force. The succession planning has been lacking. I noted that we are almost at an end, and let me try to wind up this morning's talk by saying, after we talk about succession planning, the training. President made an announcement last week about commanders and senior persons being made to go to university and that the government will pay. I will have to address that, because there are several issues. When we talk about corruption, that is a process that I see lends itself to corruption. Because you're going to ask, who is going to, if you're talking about commanders, because right now, as I've said, all of the commanders, or almost all of the commanders, were put into position based on political directions. And many of them are not qualified to be in the position they hold. So you're going to send people to university because they're commanders. So who's going to make them commanders? What will be the yardstick to be used to measure to who should become a commander? And let me say this. The university don't teach policing, you know. So you can be as bright as the morning star, all the BAs and MBAs and doctorate and all that you can get. Policing requires specialist training. And in the past, the police administration and the government recognized that. That is why they sought special training for senior officers at places like Bramshill in the United Kingdom, the FBI Academy in the USA, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Canada, and even in Jamaica, they had a command course that officers used to go to prepare them for senior command in the force. Those things have gone through for long now. But so I'm saying, sending people off to university to pursue first degrees and second degrees, while it might sound good, unless they have special police training, that is not likely to go anywhere. You're gonna improve the resume of those persons, but then it's not likely to redound to the interests of the force and the interest, because, as I've said before, you have people who are spiteful, vindictive, self-serving, corrupt, dishonest, and once they remain at the helm of the force, the Guyana police force is not going to have the change that is so so many people desirous. And if we're going to talk about moving to the 21st century with the oil and gas and all of that, you need to have honest, competent police ranks, including senior officers, to run the force. Let me close by thanking you all for joining me this morning. I think the 1 hour just went like that. I know question will be asked as to when I am going to be on again. I am working on that to ensure. I think right now we are thinking about once a week to address different subjects, but today was basically an introduction. I'll put my head around it, get some additional equipment that I need to get, and we'll let you know. So just look at the page. I encourage you again, the page, Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. Just subscribe to the page or like the page. This broadcast is also being aired live on YouTube. Subscribe, encourage your friends, encourage your families, just share widely so that as we go along, you can get the notification and you can join. And I'm going to invite you to on the same page if you have a specific issue, a specific subject that you want to address. Let me know. And here I'm dealing with policing issues. I'm no politician, so don't ask me about petition. Don't ask me about PNCR election for leader and opposition leader. That is not my forte. As we say in certain circles, I will stay in my lane, and that is way out of my lane. And I'm not going to venture there to be spiked. So I'm going to stay with things that I know, because as I've said before, I'm going to call names. And when I call names, I have to ensure that I have the facts. I have to make sure that I have the evidence, because if people can run me up the code step, and it's not that I'm afraid of the code step, but I don't want to treat, I'm not going to be unjust and say things about people that are not true. So whatever I say about persons, so when I call Brutus' name, I have a lot of things to tell you about that dishonorable person. When I talk about Karim Bashi, I have a lot to say about specific incidents in both, and some of these things are gonna make your spine quiver, especially with Brutus. Some of the things that senior officers has done and is involved in, you'll want to know how come he is still where he is, and how come he is still in the force. So thank you very much for your time. I know this is a busy time preparing for Christmas. I want to take this opportunity, in case you don't hear from me before, to wish you season's greetings and have a safe and prosperous New Year. Remember, COVID is real. So practice the COVID protocol. Practice COVID protocols, and may God be with you all. Thank you very much.